Uh, Dude, what was the last thing you rented from Blockbuster? What was one of the last like DVDs or things that you rented?
The last thing I could actually remember watching was
moving on, dude. So I do want to talk about this super quick, dude. I want to talk about this, even though I kind of passed by it. We were supposed to talk about it. I want to talk about The Last Blockbuster. Just came out Netflix, right? Documentary. I guess it's a documentary. About the last surviving Blockbuster movie rental place, right? Now, for those who are like, what is Blockbuster? Well, you're too young, probably shouldn't be watching this content anyways. if you're asking about it.
It's 8:29. You go to bed.
I assume after you're done watching Blue's Clues or whatever the fuck it is kids are watching these days, you probably shouldn't be watching the Fate podcast. But if you're asking yourself what the fuck Blockbuster is, obviously it's a movie rental chain that was very popular in the 90s. Slash 2000s that promptly got replaced by Netflix and literally any other streaming service because it was a far superior system than having to get up and fucking go pay late rental fees because you forgot to return, your 12 videos that you rented. Also, there's no such thing as a VCR anymore. Also, nobody gives a shit about a DVD player. Yada, whatever. Interesting, right? What was interesting to me about this documentary, if you want to call it that, was how stupid all really kind of is, right? A bunch of people nostalgic about Blockbuster. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy going to Blockbuster to rent movies. I did. It was a fun thing, maybe if it was you with your friends or you with the family going out. I do remember that, going in, smelling the smell of like popcorn and fucking, fucking unwashed Blockbuster, polo tees. I do remember that, and it does bring back a bit of nostalgia. But what it kept ringing to me was like, if I were to go back and be like, do you remember house phones? Do you remember, how great it was to get a call on your house phone and you have to be tethered to it? Just was all like, yeah, but we have something way better now. I can have the nostalgia for it, but it just, I don't know. And maybe it's the way that they shot it or the topics that they chose to sort of talk about. It just felt all just like, all right, like, and look, I think that we can make it there can be a world where there's something akin to a Blockbuster that exists. It's just you would have to go there for some things other than just movie rentals, right? You couldn't just go there for movie rentals because it's just that feels incredibly inefficient. Like as great as it is to go, and if you somehow still have like a DVD player or Blu-ray player to like go and like to touch the physical thing. I know that there's some people who are like really into that, but I don't have time for that. Like if the shit's on my TV right now, that's what I'm going to do. Like even having to go to theaters, right? Going back to theaters, they're starting to reopen theaters. Even that's like, I don't know, fam. I don't know do we need to do this? I don't know if we need to do it.
Is there anything in theaters right now that's even worth the risk if you haven't been vaccinated yet? I don't know.
Until Dune comes out, I really find no reason to enter a movie theater. There's nothing out there. I'm not, if the theater had been open and they were like, yo, we've got Wonder Woman 1984, I would have been highly disappointed to risk my life for that. That would have been
oh my God. The anger I would have felt. Jesus, I would have started some type of online protest, or I would have fucking burned the place down. Yeah, I would have. Something bad would have happened.
People are writing for like, Black Lives Matter. People getting shot.
I'm here for destruction. Listen, that might have been the one thing that like pushed me over the edge. If I went to see Wonder Woman 1984 in theaters, I might have lost my shit. So here's what I hope we get from the Blockbuster, because like while we were here, I did look it up. And funny story, I've actually been to this
Yeah, I
Blockbuster in
know
Bend,
you
Oregon.
frequent Oregon, right? You've been there a number of times.
It's been like some time, like 2 years or so since I've been to Oregon, mostly Portland, Oregon. But like Bend, Oregon is like 25 minutes away, and I've been to Bend, Oregon, and I've actually been to and seen this Blockbuster. So like for the people who don't know Blockbuster's story, right? I got a quick excerpt from an article here for you. So. At its peak in the late 90s, Blockbuster owned over 9,000 store rental locations across the United States, right? And it employed over 84,000 people worldwide and had 65 million registered customers. Think about that. 9,000 stores, 84,000 employees, 65 million registered customers. It was once valued at, again, this is late 90s, this is once valued at $3 billion. And I think, if I'm correct, at one point, the CEO of Blockbuster was offered an opportunity to like sell the companies.
Well, yeah, or are you about to jump into Netflix thing?
Yeah, so I think well, I think there maybe even was an offer, an opportunity where they could have bought out Netflix in the early days, right? So several things happened. But go ahead.
Well, so they turned out, I think that they did from this, although I guess maybe they kind of play coy with it, at least in my interpretation of how they present it. But they did have an opportunity, but the problem was I don't think that they could have necessarily at the time, or maybe I'm getting my facts wrong here. I think that the reason why Blockbuster didn't purchase Netflix was because they were in an incredibly better position than Netflix was, right? But once they saw Netflix was like doing all this shit, they were like, oh shit, we need to hop on our fuck late fees, fuck all that shit. And we could just do a lot of this shit in house. We can send people DVDs and shit like that in the mail or tapes in the mail. But the problem is that the financial crisis hit in 2007, 2008, where and just think about it yourself. Like, it's just logic, right? You have this place that's like a brick and mortars, right? You have all these actual locations for Blockbusters, which that puts so much strain when you hit a financial disaster and you have all this overhead for physical locations. Netflix didn't have all that shit. It's just, hey, let's just send DVDs out to people and shit, because for those who can't remember, that's what Netflix was for the longest time, which is
yeah.
Now remember, they only have like shit movies that were streaming, and if you had the internet that could support that at that time, but really everything that you wanted to watch, you had to order through mail. And so really they were doing kind of the same strategy, but one was in a way better position to do that. The other wasn't, where Netflix could take on all this debt and do all this shit because they just were they didn't have all the saddlebag that was the actual physical locations and the infrastructure that Blockbuster had already built up. So yeah, anyways, I don't know.
So like a couple years ago, I read this book about like the stages of failure, right? And like I think it's called like Why Companies Collapse or something like that, right? And it talks, and that's what I hope this documentary is about. So this is how we're tying it back to the documentary. I hope that on the surface, this looks like just a documentary about the affinity of this Blockbuster and how people love it and how people are trying to like protect it and preserve it and blah, blah, blah. But I hope like beneath that, there's a look at the actual business itself and how Blockbuster went from being a $3 billion company, which in 1 year in this article that I was reading talked about how like they had charged $800 million in late fees alone. Like if you've ever rented a movie from Blockbuster, you know how damning those late fees were. But what the Blockbuster story is about, it's about like resistance to change, right? At one point when they could have bought out Netflix or they could have made an offer to buy Netflix, they thought that their business model was superior and that technology and times were going to change. They were going to continue to dominate, right? And then when they realized that Netflix was growing, it was a real thing and they're doing really well, even then they resisted adopting the business model. I think in the early stages, if Blockbuster started doing what Netflix did, it was like mailing out DVDs or mailing out Blu-ray or whatever, and like maybe like leaning towards like a streaming service, I think they could have still been in existence today and maybe even beat out Netflix or acquired Netflix, right? And even after Netflix started to grow, right, and it became like a real thing, they still resisted change. Redbox. Before I was really, really about streaming services, before I really was like all about Netflix, I used to go to Redbox all the time to like, get those DVDs.
It was like a year ago. You were like, yeah, I got to go return this shit to like Redbox. Or you're like, just got this shit from Redbox. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I think I was disgusted. I was like, get the fuck out.
I think I got my. I don't know. I think this was maybe like the beginning of 2020 is when I got my like January. Like I remember buying getting a Netflix DVD, and I was like, yeah, this is probably the last time I do this. But so even because like there was Redbox, and Redbox was like really successful at one point, and then after like Redbox was doing really well for several years, Blockbuster tried to come out with the Blockbuster box, and it's like, dude, you're late to the thing. Like you're late. It's gonna, and I think their price was more than Redbox. So it's like you're late and you're charging more. Like, why would I do this? And then here we are today, where they have one last surviving store in Bend, Oregon. I think it's like next to a Jack Shack, which in Bend, Oregon. In Oregon, Jack Shacks are legal. You can go and jerk off to shit.
Okay,
it's called a Jack Shack.
Yeah, should have been painfully obvious. I was thinking, this is like a Jack in a Box.
It's a real thing.
What is this?
You go and there's a woman there and she like entertains you and you can jerk off. You can't touch her. But you can jerk off and then go about your day.
Like after like the first like year that place existed, who would want to go in there? That's gross.
I mean, let's be real.
Stepping in some other dude's cum.
Let's be real. You know, there are some people that are going to go. You go to the Jack Shack, then you go to Shake Shack, and then you go to Blockbuster.
All sorts of shacks.
Yeah.
You go to Shaq's house.
Yeah.
Does he live in Oregon? I don't know.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the main things I wanted to talk about super quick, because I actually probably have to run here in a couple of minutes, but dude, what was the last thing you rented from Blockbuster? What was one of the last like DVDs or things that you rented?
The last thing I could actually remember watching was or renting from Blockbuster. I think it was like the Godzilla movie. I think it was Godzilla, the one with who's the fucking guy? Ferris Bueller.
Andy something Roderick. Not Andy Roddick, that's the tennis player. Matthew Broderick. But that was in 1998. So there had to have been ones later than that.
Did
you really like? I'm fiending for fucking
maybe
Godzilla,
or was it like the Matrix 2, Part 2 or something like that? I know it was like one of those like sci-fi like futuristic movies, or like maybe it was like Godzilla or like King Kong or something like that. But it definitely wasn't like. We never got stupid shit like Save the Last Dance. We would never rent that. Just wait till it comes out on.
How dare you? First off,
that was the first movie that came to mind that I could attack. It was a good. It was a good movie. It was a good movie. It was a good movie.
It still slaps today. Wildly, I think dated, in just every way. But nah, that shit still slaps, man. I still love Save the Last Dance.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
One of the first times that I went to the theater, like it wasn't by who. It was me and my little sister. Me and my little sister went to go see Save the Last Dance.
Yeah, what was the dumbest movie you've seen in theaters?
The dumbest movie? There are a lot of them. The dumbest movie I've seen in theaters. The dumbest. You might have to come back to me. Do you have one queued up? I got to think about that.
Yes, I do. Right. So, this movie came out in 2005 called Bewitched. Remember with Nicole Kidman and Will Ferrell? Yeah. So me and my boy Xavier went to go see this movie in theaters. Well, to do that. Is it? Yeah. So I think we were supposed to meet these girls at the movie theater, and then the girls they bailed on us or didn't show up or something like that. This was in high school. It's 2005, right? Yeah. So I think we were supposed to meet these girls at the movie theater and they didn't come through. So we're like, yo, fuck it. Let's just go see a movie. And like Bewitched was the next movie showing. So we were like, fuck it, let's go. And then we just went and we saw this. So we were two like guys watching this Will Ferrell, Nicole. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But it was just kind of like,
but it was a dumb movie.
And I remember looking, it was actually not a bad movie, but I remember looking back. I remember looking back.
That's the worst movie you've seen in theaters was Bewitched, in which you liked.
Liked is no, yeah. Let's not go there. But like, I just remember, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? Why are we watching it? Why did I pay to see this movie? This movie's going to be on USA. You know, because they what is it? Is it USA that we've got the movies? They've got the movies, right? Isn't that thing?
Maybe, I don't know.
Or is that FX? Anyway, it's going to be on TV in like the next 3 months. Why the fuck are we here? But anyway, I just that movie came to mind, and I just remember thinking that was stupid. Why did I go see that?
Yeah, I think.
But there's also Wonder Woman 1984.
Well, you didn't see that,
but I didn't see that in theaters. Yeah, but even the thought of having gone to see it in theaters pisses me off.
Fair enough, dude. I'm genuinely trying to think of a movie that I walked out of the theaters like, what in the fuck was that?
You know what? So here's what we're gonna do. If you can't think of one right now, because I know you got to go, let's open up our next show with this segment.
Yeah, let me marinate
Yeah, get like the 3 or the 5 like worst movies that you went to see in theaters.
Yeah, let's do that. But I can tell you what one of the last things that I rented from Blockbuster, I believe it was either Resident Evil or a game similar to Resident Evil. I suspect it's a game similar to Resident Evil because it's like Dark something, but I can't remember the fucking name. But I remember it was kind of like a third person shooting game. I remember fucking loving that game. And I remember, people like when they talk about Blockbuster, they rarely bring up the fact that you can fucking rent games there. You know, I don't know why.
Oh yeah. I always forget that. That's the number one thing we would do, but I always forget that we could do that.
Yeah. And I fucking loved, renting games from there and then returning it. Okay. Look, I can't tell you one of the worst movies I've seen in theaters right now, but I can tell you one of the worst games I ever fucking rented from Blockbuster. And I remember this, and I could tell you like a whole story, and maybe I'm going to take the couple of seconds or a couple of minutes it's going to take to tell this, but, one of the worst games was WrestleMania. I think it was 18. It was like the video game, that I rented from Blockbuster. And not only, was the game shit, but it was like a fucking journey because not only we just moved to this new house, and I wasn't familiar with I remember where the Blockbuster was, but I couldn't remember how to get there and then back to my house. So then as I was doing that, I got lost.
Stupid kids.
I got lost on my way back, and I ended up like walking for like what it seemed like forever. The fucking sun went down. Shit was getting a little shaky. And look, say what you will about Colombia for all the racist shit that might be there. Look, I knocked on some random dude's door, and it was exactly the type of dude that you'd probably be like, nah, you probably shouldn't. That'd be the last guy you'd want to like, run into. But he was there with his family, I guess. Can I help you, sir? It was just like old white dude, bald head, and it's just like, oh, fuck, here we go. Here's how it ends for old Toonsters, right? But to his fucking credit, man, he was like, yeah, where do you live? And I was like, oh, I live in so-and-so. He's like, yeah, I know where that is. I'll give you a ride. And he fucking gave me a ride. Super fucking nice dude. Yeah. And then I got home and played the game. It was like, this was not worth everything I just went through for this. This was terrible.
If that one situation had gone wrong, we wouldn't be doing this podcast.
I almost died from that game.
You'd be dead, or you'd be dealing with some past trauma that may have changed who you became today.
I'd be doing a book and creating a movie like Cherry.
You'd be robbing banks and shooting up heroin.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's our fucking show for the night.